Good evening, landlords. This is Abdul Kareem of Ace Investment Properties. I hope you're well this evening. If you're joining me just now, this is the third video I've made in a series. I initially thought these were all going to be one video, but it actually turns out that going through the tax laws and tax codes takes longer than you've expected. So I've made two videos so far. So if you haven't watched those, you probably want to check them out right now. So the first video is, truth be told, I just kind of gave it a layman's kind of conversation of that the government's essentially introduced that you can't deduct your finance cost anymore. And if you use it a furnished holiday let, you can. So I went through that metaphorically and showed a little bit of a tax calculator. So that's the first video. So if you've got no clue about Section 24, mortgage interest, finance relief, furnished holiday lets, that first video is a great introduction. The second video, I actually went through that policy paper. So that's that first link right here. I'm going to show you that right now. So that is the first video. I went through this. I'll give you spoiler alert in the bread and butter of it. Who's likely to be affected? The title is Restricting Finance Cost Relief for Individual Landlords. So spoiler alert for an individual landlord. So who's likely to be affected? Individuals that receive rental income on residential property in the UK or elsewhere and incur finance costs, such as mortgage interest, excluding whether property meets all the criteria to be furnished holiday let. So I went through this whole document in another video and broke it down and gave my background talk on it. I'm not a financial advisor, I should say. Always seek professional tax advice, but I'm just giving my taking tax jargon and translating it from a government voice to a normal voice that you can understand and be like, oh, so that's what that means. So if you want to go through that, I'll send you the link. You can read the document yourself. And I've also got a video on that. This video will basically be discussing. So it says excluding whether property meets all the criteria to be furnished holiday let. So you might be asking, what is a furnished holiday let? You're in the right place. Abdul Kareem from Ace Investment Properties is going to go through that right now. So what is a furnished holiday let? So the government's HS253 condition. So if you're a landlord and you've either been on our webinar right here, Ace Investment Properties webinar, that's www.aceinvestmentproperties.com/register. If you've been on that webinar, you've been on the phone with me, or you've been on a viewing with me, you will know that I give the pitch and I tell landlords that, hey, working with us, another benefit is you get to fill the government's HS253 condition. And essentially what that means is you get to pay less tax. That is what I say to people. That's what I say to landlords, and it's the truth. And if they've never heard about it, they're not familiar with it, the HS253 condition, Section 24. If you're not sure about Section 24, that's the other video. If you're aware about Section 24, but you don't know what the HS253 condition, you don't know what a furnished holiday let is, you are in the right place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this. I'm preempting you. Jargon heavy document from the government. This is the official government website. I'm going to read it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my background explanation. And from my knowledge, working with landlords, what they've been able to do and what this means, and essentially in relation to our business and how you can save. So the crux of the matter is that the government introduced a scheme where essentially, once upon a time, landlords were able to deduct their finance costs, their mortgage interest from their tax bill. In this world we live in, that's no longer possible. But there's a little loophole where you can still deduct your mortgage interest payments with a myriad of other benefits, but only if the property meets all the criteria to be a furnished holiday let. I'm curious to what a furnished holiday let is. So let's look at it. So HS253, furnished holiday let, 2022 onwards. So let's get into it. So there are special tax rules for rental incomes from properties that qualify as furnished holiday let. So the government's telling you right here, there's special tax rules. It's a different game. If your property is a furnished holiday let, you're playing a different game. It's in the first sentence. So look, if you let properties that qualify as furnished holiday lets, you can claim capital gains tax relief. So your introduction to this is most likely mortgage interest payments. That's all I've told you. You can also claim capital gains tax release for traders. So brackets, business asset rollover relief, release for gifts of business assets, a release for loans to traders. So depending on how in-depth you are and in your business and your acumen, you'll know how this impacts you personally. But a lot of people are very, very, very excited to hear about this capital gains tax release. Anyway, you're entitled to plant and machinery capital allowances. So capital allowance is a big one. So the biggest one and the most common one is for furniture. So I know a landlord with a vast portfolio, around 99 properties. He had a furniture business as well. So a lot of his properties have furniture. So him being allowed to obtain capital allowances for that, for his properties, you can imagine the difference, the absolute amazing benefits he was able to achieve from that. So if you're a landlord, vast portfolio with furniture and capital allowances, so you'd be very interested. But most likely he's he's an ultra high net worth individual. So of course, as soon as these things get produced and published, he knows straight away. But this is why people like me are here making webinars, reading through the tax code at 8 p.m. on a Saturday, week before Christmas. So landlords who are, in the government's words, above average income can get to know about what the super rich get to use to save on tax. So I don't see any reason why individuals who want to make more money and want to have more money in their pocket shouldn't know. So anyway, that's why I'm going through this document. So anyway, if you let property that qualifies FHLs, you also get to the profits count as earnings for pension purposes. Another benefit. So obviously a lot of the landlords, like the landlord I know, I don't think he's worried about pension, but hey, if you've got a pension, the profits count as earnings for pension purposes. But this is if you're running it yourself. So if you've got a management company, it's a bit of a different structure. So anyway, to benefit from these rules, you need to work out the profit or loss from your FHLs separately from any other rental business. So depending on how you run this, if you're running it yourself, which you can, if you just come across this and you're like, hey, I can do this myself, I don't need a management company, do more power to you. It is very, very running a FHL and doing it properly, because I've said in another video, if you haven't seen that video, I'll say it now. This is the same. The government call it FHLs. I prefer, and my favorite term is service accommodation. More people know it commonly as short stays, and some people know it as Airbnb, booking.com. Look, it is the same business model that an 18-year-old uni student will take to rent a property, put online, and get his friends to book it for one night to have a party. It is the same strategy, same tax code as a world-renowned international business with hundreds of properties who let a business to business with corporate clients who stay on a continued retainer basis with that conglomerate company. It's the same model. They're both FHLs. They're both service accommodations. If you have a property and you rent it to not a tenant, not on a long-term purpose, and the property is furnished, it's the same strategy. It just depends on who you're playing with and how well you play it. So you can decide to get in the game as yourself as a landlord. I would implore you to, more power to you. Or you can be like, I'm going to take advantage of a company who's been running this strategy for a long term and knows how to do it, so I don't end up with that one night uni party and screaming because I have made a massive mistake. So more power to you, whichever you decide to do. If you decide to work with us, there should be a link below. Click that, book that, speak with myself. Anyway, accommodation that qualifies as an FHL. To qualify as FHL, your property must be in the UK or in the European Economic Area. The EEA includes Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway. As of right now, Ace Investment Properties has not expanded into Iceland and Norway, but if you're a landlord for property, landlord for property there, hey, I'd be happy to go on a viewing. Anyway, it has to be furnished. There must be sufficient furniture provided for normal occupation, and your visitors must be entitled to the furniture. So great. If your property is currently furnished, great, but we take on unfurnished properties and we actually furnish them ourselves. So not to worry. The property must be commercially let. You must intend to make a profit. Great. If you let the property out of season to cover costs but did not make a profit, the letting will be treated as commercial. So this is looking at it as you're the operator. So this document is presented as if you're the operator. So there's two ways that this can be done. You do as yourself, do not need to be the operator. The most important thing is just the property is run as a furnished holiday let. So this can be you getting a guaranteed rent and the property is run as a furnished holiday let. This can be you working with an operator and you get if the property makes more money. So for example, you'll see it dives into occupancy and all of this stuff. So if the property is booked for, let's say, 80-90% of you guys make a ton of money, or the property is empty for 10%, you guys split either way. So it is a business. It is a business. So it does go up, it does go down. So you can either split profit share with an operator. We can work with you on that if that's something you're interested in, or you can benefit from the guaranteed rent and we use it as an FHL and then tell you everything you need to do to benefit from the tax assessment. So our primary offer is the guaranteed rent. If you're interested in profit share, we're happy to work with anybody that is serious about their business. So look, property must be commercially. You must intend to make a profit. So me making you guaranteed rent is intention for you to make a profit. If you let the property out of season to cover costs but did not make a profit, the letting will still be treated as commercial. So if you're running this individually yourself, you must be aware of this. So I am going to go through this document, speaking to potential landlords, and because technically I'm only making this because the landlord I'm working with didn't have time to read it, so I'm doing it for him. So, but I'm going to put this online. So even if you have got no intention of ever working with us, I'll break it down into the differences and things you should be aware of because I wouldn't want anybody to trip up. So look, all your furnished holiday lets in the UK are taxed as a single UK furnished holiday let business, and all furnished holiday lets in other EEA states are taxed as a single EEA FHL business. You will need to keep separate records for each FHL business because losses from one FHL business cannot be used against profits of the other. Okay, so this does not apply to 99% of people, but what they're saying is if you are a landlord with properties in Norway and you are a landlord with properties in the UK, your business in London and Norway, you can't look at them as one big business, even if they're under the same company. You need to look at them as two separate businesses and give them two separate tax. You may think that's obvious, or you may think, what's the point of that? That is only important because of running it, you can actually offset losses against one business in a tax year. So if you're running it yourself, and this year you don't make money, but last year you did make money, you can play around, offset the taxes within one business. So they have to make this important distinction because they don't want you to do business. Next, occupancy condition. Accommodation can only qualify as a FHL if it passes all three occupancy conditions. Okay, let's look at this. So how to use the occupancy conditions. For continuing let, apply the test to the tax year. That's from 6th of April 1 year to 5th of April the next year. So heads up, around the tax year, you're going to be receiving emails from myself telling you more about this again and again. Maybe this is when you're watching it. Anyway, for a new let, apply the test to the first 12 months from when the letting began. So if you just rented out your property in December, or you decide to start in January, look at it from then 12 months, because this will be a new let for you. If you're watching this, you're most likely not aware and not running your property as furnished holiday let. So this is the important thing. You'll be looking at it from the next 12 months. When your letting stops, apply the test to the 12 months up to when the letting finished. Okay, so 12 months very clear. So we've got 12-month break clauses as well. So at a break clause, we offer 3, 5, and 7-year guaranteed rent agreements. By the time you're watching this, we may stop doing 3-year rent agreements. I thought they were long. Landlords are opting for longer, so give customers what they want. So, but we've got a 12-month break clause just so they can also see what it's like to receive guaranteed rent, hands-off management for 1 whole year. And so we can also help them with this come tax time. Anyway, next, when your letting stops, apply the test to the 12 months up to when the letting finished. Makes sense. The pattern of occupation condition. If the total of all lettings that exceed 31 continuous days is more than 155 days during the year, this condition is not met. So your property will not be an FHL for that year. I'm going to read this one more time, especially because I made a post about this scenario, pointing someone to the document, and this stumped them. And I had to read it 3 times, not because I didn't understand it, because I had to understand what he didn't understand in the back. So I had to read this, understand it, and then read it and understand it from a confused mind. So I'm going to clarify this. So the pattern of occupation condition. If the total of all lettings that exceed 31 continuous days, so let's start with that. So you need to stop your mode of thinking of a buy-to-let tenant right now. We're in a furnished holiday let document. So imagine you're using your property as a service accommodation or short stay, whatever you want to call it, furnished holiday let. So when you're renting your property as a furnished holiday let, as you know, this can be one night, it can be 1 week, it can be 1 month, it can be 3 months, and even up to 6 months. Anything from 1 night to 6 months in terms of tax, in terms of returns, in terms of classification, they are all the same thing. They're all, if you're renting properties, and I rent properties out, I take properties on guaranteed rent and I rent them to people 5 months at a time, I am running a short stay business, okay? Clarification number 1. Next. So if, given this is my condition, so if that was me, I would be letting for properties exceeding 31 days, because I just said I'm doing it for 5 months. So 5 months larger than 31 days. But what this statement is saying is, if the total lettings exceed 31 continuous days, is more than 155 days during this year, the condition is not met. So your property will not be at FHL for that year. So what we're saying is, you can rent to people for more than 31 days. You can rent for less than 31 days. But if you rent for more than 1 month at a time, and the total of is over 155 days. So let's say you're renting 50 days. Let's say for some reason you've got a specific sorry, this is funny. I do apologize. If you've got a specific business model where you rent to a company for 50 days, that's what you rent for 50 days. If you took 4 bookings in a year, so you took 4 bookings for 50, so 200 bookings total, so 200 days, they would say it doesn't count. That's what they're saying. They're saying it doesn't count if you work like that. They're saying, don't try to trick us by operating super long bookings and just renting it out. They don't want that, okay? So the person who spoke to me, they were confused because they read this and they said, this wouldn't work with a traditional buy-to-let. And yes, it wouldn't work with traditional buy-to-let because the whole point is that you're not running a traditional buy-to-let. You're running a different business model, and that different business model has different tax implications. So if you are now wiser, your question may be, hey, Abdul, if this is the case, then does that mean that all of your bookings are going to be less than 31 days? Oh, I don't like that. No. Okay. There is this is the experience part of this talking. So this is where you won't get this from someone who's not been doing this. So there's 2 ways. So you can rent for more than 31 days, and most businesses, they'd be very, very lucky. They'd be jumping for joy if they could run their business and get bookings that exceed 31 days. That is something that takes skill and expertise, and most people who run this do not have that. They do not have that. They don't do one nights. Most people, because if you do one nights a lot, you're either not really that professional, or you just got in the business and you realize why you shouldn't. But number 1, like most people are scared of the party bookings. Number 2, it's literally just not that profitable. If you've got a property with 30 days in a month, you've got property and there's 30 days in a month. If you rent it for 1 day for 30 days, versus if you rent it for 1 day for 30 days, the cleaning costs, because as I mentioned, professional cleaning for every time someone checks in, the costs rise up, and the more people in it, the less the quality of the property, it deteriorates, wear and tear. And when you're running a furnished holiday let business or short stay, whatever you want to call it, there's a unique situation that applies, that as opposed to a tenant, your incentives are now aligned. So not only do you get this upfront guaranteed rent and this nice handshake agreement, then you meet someone, your incentives are aligned going forward because this person, as you know, from this tax document and general, they're in it for profit. So they don't have an incentive. I running a business for 6 years, do not have an incentive for somebody that I do not know and have never met to come into a property I'm managing and throw a party. I don't have that. There's literally no benefit to me. There's literally no benefit to me. I was running service departments as a business for years and years and years and years and years. And people I knew on a personal basis did not even know. And one of the reasons they did not know is because when people know you've got service departments, everybody's friends got an occasion. And for one small period, I did entertain that with properties that were specially made for events like this. And even then, it's not worth the hassle, truth be told. So it's just not something we deal with. So I'm hitting this home here because the people's biggest fear with this is that the property was going to take on and it's going to get something's going to happen to it. And it's just not true. It's a false belief. And it doesn't make sense if you really break it down and look at it. We're taking the time to go through the tax code, look at all these documents so you can understand the tax implementations and the benefits as well. But also just the fact that your incentives are aligned with someone who's running this business model, because when you benefit, they benefit. When they benefit, you benefit. I've got no benefit. The only reason that would happen is you're dealing with someone who's unprofessional. And that's not the case. So anyway, let's look into this. So you can deal with a company, and this is, I'm going to say this, and it's not really all cheating. It's just the reality of the situation. So a lot of the bookings that we get that exceed 31 days, so this could be a 2-month, 3-month, 4-month booking. The reason this would never stump a professional like ourselves is because the companies we work with, we understand their customer profile. Okay, we understand who they're and they're like. So we might take on a company that we know is going to stay for 3 months. We know it just based on their project and what they're working with, but they won't book for 3 months at once. They don't come like, hey, Abdul, I want to stay for 3 months. That would be great. I'm working on making that happen. But as of right now, they come to a property, they stay for a week. Why do they stay for a week? Because they want to make sure they're staying in a place that's nice. They want to make sure they're taken care of. They want to make sure they do business. It's like a property with a break clause. Their break clauses are 1 week. They want to say 1 week. But what happens when you're still working on the project that you're working on, because these projects sit down and you enjoy the service, you enjoy the place and everything's nice. You just extend. But they don't be like, okay, I know I'm going to be here for 3 months. Let's pay 3 months. They do 7 days, they do 7 days, they do 7 days. Or they do 14 days, 14 days. Or they do 28 days, 28 days, 28 days. But it's never more than 31. We don't ever let it be more than 31, right? Because yes. So we can get, as an operator, people that stay for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, very professional, place taken care of, place professionally clean, place well maintained, nothing like tenants. Yet this condition will never be broken. So very important. Okay, let's keep going. And spoiler alert, because I don't want to waste your time and go through a whole document. Everything in this document is essentially just saying what we do offer you as landlords. So there's no going to be any slip ups, and I'll be honest, truth be told, I briefly read this quickly and I was like, oh yeah, this is all normal. So I'm taking my time out to read this document, which is very, very boring. Government tax document, I think we can all agree, government tax documents are very boring. Just so you as a landlord can feel safe and understand that, yes, we do know what we're talking about. Yes, we do and are running this. And yes, working with us is in your best interest. But anyway, let's deep dive into it so it doesn't take too long. The availability condition: your property must be available for letting as furnished holiday accommodation, letting for at least 210 days in the year. So most of these apply to people who are running this yourself. We're obviously going to do this for you, so you don't need to worry. But let's say you're running this yourself. Essentially, what they're saying is you can't just be a landlord for 9 months of the year. Your tenant leaves, and for the last 1, 2, 3 months before you get a new tenant in, you just run it as a furnished or let service accommodation and try to get tax benefits. Like, no, you need to do it for at least 210 days, 7 months of the year. Essentially, if you work with us, it will be like run as that every month, all year round. So again, this does not apply. So for the tax year 2020 to 2021, the availability condition is satisfied if the person has made the property available for letting as furnished holiday accommodation for at least 200 days in the year, even if coronavirus COVID-19 restrictions prevent the property from being used. Okay. They're saying the same thing, but they're adding the COVID condition. Do not count any days when you're staying in the property. HMRC does not consider the property to be available for that when you're staying there. Obviously, you wouldn't be staying in the property because you've got your own house and this is an investment property, and it wouldn't be. But of course, some people, yeah, you could be a living landlord and run your property as a furnished holiday let technically. So yes, if you were a landlord living in your property using it as a furnished holiday let, make sure when you do your tax return, you know each day that you stayed in, because they don't want you to count it. Make sure you do that. Okay. The next condition. You must let the property commercially as furnished holiday accommodation to public for at least 105 days in the year. Okay. At least 105 days in the year. So that is, it must be booked for at least 3.5 months. It was 7 days for that year. So if you were doing your taxes retrospectively, it only had to be 70 days. So this is so basically what they're saying is, because you might be, what's the difference between this versus this? Well, if you notice, which I just noticed now, this is half of this. So they're saying it must be available for 200 days, 10 days in the year. And they're saying you have to hit 50% occupancy. So even though the government is giving you a minimum of 50%, so if you're not getting 50% occupancy, they're saying you're literally not running a business. So look, do not count any days when you let the property to friends or relatives at zero reduced rates as no commercial let. That makes sense. They're saying you can't be like, do you know what? Which is quite smart, actually, to be fair. So kudos for them to include in this. Kudos for anyone who thought of that. You've got a property, a spare room, and you just rent it to friends or family at a reduced rate, and then you kind of as a very holiday lets you get tax benefits. That is actually quite smart. I know they had to add that retrospectively, 100%. This was not an original document. Anyway, do not count longer term lets or more than 31 days. Less than 31 days is exceeded because something unforeseen happens, for example, the holiday maker. Full ills or has an accent, cannot leave on time, has to extend the holiday due to delayed flight. So look, what I was talking about earlier is this essentially. They has to extend their holiday due to delayed flight. So they have to extend their stay due to a delay in the project. And if you know, hey, if you're a landlord, who knows better than landlords about delayed projects? Who does? So yeah, 7 days delayed project, or 14-day, 28-day project, delayed again. And truth be told, some builders, I don't know if they know this, but when they come to us in the psychological mindset of, yeah, no, we're only going to be here for 14 days or 28 days. Well, no, trust me, we want to get out of it. So, because the people staying who are enjoying it and the person paying for it, they're usually two different people. So the person paying for it is usually trying to wrap it up, but the people staying are either enjoying it, maybe they're dragging their feet on the project, but nonetheless, that 31 days, you have to make sure you know what you're doing. So I know your clientele, okay. So look, if you do not let your property for at least 105 days, you have two options known as elections that can help you reach the occupancy threshold. This part is very generous of the government. This is them being quite nice. So they're saying, if you don't hit occupancy, they're saying you can essentially, number one, the average election, if you've more than one property. Number two, period of grace selection. If your property reaches the occupancy threshold, there's some years, but not others. So they're saying, it's like I mentioned earlier in the document, you can retrospectively use your old term. So let's say I was renting it for last year, I did 150, but this year I only did 100. They're like, okay, you can use your 150 from last term to say that you hit it this year to show, because basically they're trying to not penalize people who had a bad year, but because this document and all documents, they're essentially saying, if you do this, you get this benefits. But all these conditions, all conditions are essentially doing is they're trying to stop people cheating the system. If you're cheating the system, they don't want you to get the benefits. But if you are running it, then you're always going to get the benefits, because it's not aha, it's not gotcha. It's if you do this, you get this. This is what you need to do to get this. So there's no, oh, I'm running as a furnished holiday let, but oh, I might not get the benefits because of this. No. And they even say if you've got two properties and you're both running them, if that one has got more, you can use that from that one. So they say, hey, if you got a business and you're running two and one was really profitable, the other one didn't do so well, hey, you can use it as proof to show that you're running this business. So this is what it's going to talk about, and this numbers, and because I just explained in words, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Averaging an election. If you let more than one property as FHL, one or more of these properties does not meet the letting condition of 105 days, you can elect to apply the letting condition to the average rate of occupancy for all the properties you let as FHLs. So the light just went off in my room. Deep apologies. That's how long I've not moved for. Bear with me 1 minute. Isn't that cool? So, example. Oh, they even got examples. Did I finish it? So let's say one more time. If you let more than one property as FHL, one or more of these properties does not meet the letting condition of 105 days, you can elect to apply the letting condition, the average rate of occupancy for all the properties you let as FHL. So this is saying you've got 5 properties, one hits 8%, one hits 70%, one hits 60%. You can look at them all as 70%, and if that hits 105, you're in, which should do because you're running this. And bearing in mind, everything from this down does not apply if you're running it year round, which is what we're doing. If you let more than one property, okay, example, MLS 4 UK holiday cottages in 2021 to 22 for the following number of days. 120, 125, 1126, 421. Or does Emma make it? She makes it because she's at 105.25 days. If Emma uses averaging, all 4 cottages will meet the condition. 421 days divided by 4 equals 105. 105.25, but you can't have 0.25 days. But anyway, without averaging, cottage 4 will not qualify. That's true. You can only average across properties in a single FHL because you cannot mix EU. See, I told you. But look, this is very, very generous. I think this is very nice. This is a nice tax condition. Tamlin, you can make an averaging election up to 1 year after 31 January following the end of the tax year. For example, if you're filing your tax return for 2021 to 22, you must make your election by 31st of January 20. So this is great. So look, they even saying, so let's say we start working together in 2023, you can still let me not say something that's not true, but essentially you can retrospectively look back and do your tax returns for these times, as long as you've got the documents, as long as you've got the data, which we always do have. Anyway, period of grace election. So even if you're like, oh, you know what, this tax thing is too complicated, I don't want to do it right now, I just want to get involved, I just want to get started, I'll figure out the tax thing, you can do that. Period of grace election. You may genuinely intend to meet the letting condition, but were unable to. If this happens, you may be able to make a period of grace election that allows the property to qualify for SH as long as the pattern of occupation and available conditions were met. To make an election, you must be able to show that you had a genuine intention to let the property in the year. For example, where you market the property to the same or greater level than its successful year, or where the lettings are cancelled due to unforeseen circumstances. So look, one of the examples is marketing. So if you need that, we've got that. For example, where you market a property to the same or greater level than its successful years, or where the lettings are cancelled due to unforeseen circumstances, including extreme adverse. So you can make an election where the property met the letting condition the year before the first year you wish to make a period of grace election, either on its own or because of an averaging election. If your property again does not meet the letting condition the following year, you can make a second period of grace election as long as you made an election the previous year. Very generous. If your property does not meet the threshold by the 4th year, after 2 consecutive period of grace election, it will no longer qualify as furnished holiday let. So they're saying you can get away with having this low occupancy and grace for basically 3 years, but after 4, they're like, you're doing something wrong, mate. Yeah. So look, for the tax year, 2020 to 2021, unforeseen circumstances include with the letting condition not made due to COVID-19. Okay. Forced closure due to lockdown or travel ban. Right. How to make an election? You can either use your self-assessment UK property pages. So look, this is where everything is going to be done. So all of this talking essentially just comes back to a self-assessment in your UK property pages. Make separately up to 1 year after 31st January following the end of the tax year. For example, if you're filing your tax return for 2021, you must make your election by 31st January 2024. Using both averaging and period of grace. If you have more than one property, you can use both averaging and period of grace election. I hope everybody gets it. I hope everybody gets it. I hope nobody's confused by it. But if you're running this business, you're really running it essentially, you will qualify. They make it so easy for qualify. And this would only be a concern for someone like Emma, who's only doing it. She's only running it for half the year. So if you're only running it for half the year and you're getting less than, so you can run it for half the year and have half occupancy and still run it. Sorry, let me not make a mistake in my speaking. 210 days and a half the year. 210 days, not half the year. It's about 2/3. Anyway, qualify quote. Property closed for part D or only part of the property. If your property is only used as FHL and is closed for part D because they have no customers, you can deduct all the expenses such as insurance and loan interest for the whole year, provided you do not live in the property. If you let part of the property as FHL where you can use the property primarily for part of the year, you need to portion your receipts and expenses on the business. So basically, what this is saying is if this property is used as a furnished holiday self-accommodation, you can deduct all the expenses, interest and loan interest, which is why we're here, because you can deduct your loan interest. You can deduct all of it, provided you never live in it. Provided you never live, as long as you never step foot in this site, make it your home residence, you can make all these deductions. But they're saying if you live in it, maybe you live in a room, so maybe you're a living landlord and use some of the rooms as FHLs, then they say you need to just do the maths, square off, make sure it is, you're not using, because you're using 2 rooms, you're counting all the electricity bills. No, make it separate. Property supposed to be in the FHL is sold, used for private occupation. Letting condition is not met even with the average and period grade. So look, based on everything, as long as you sell it, you don't sell it, or use for private occupation, we're not doing that. I'm not gonna come and rent your property and come live in it. Sorry, I need to make jokes if I'm gonna get through this. If your property does not qualify as FHL, starts being a qualifying FHL, the special tax treatment will no longer apply. So if you run it as 1 year and you're like, hey, I ran it with Abdul for 1 year, I'm gonna go back to tenants the next year for whatever reason, you don't get to continue the benefits. Anyway, you need to work out any balancing allowance or balancing charges for capital allowance. So if you want capital allowances, hey, I have not gone through the capital allowance document, but if enough people reach out to me and for some reason enjoy this tax document, run through that badly, I will consider going through this capital allowances, but no promises. I hope you go online and you don't find this, because I'm not sure if I want to do this again. And if any capital gains tax relief will be affected, read entrepreneurs relief, business asset rollover relief, relief to gifts and similar transaction, debts and capital gains tax. So look at all these documents. You've got this link. You can go through. I won't hide the documents. You can find them. So look, what you can do with losses, I'm almost done. If your UK FHL business makes a loss, you can set the loss against your UK FHL profits of later years. Similarly, if your EEA FHL business makes a loss, you can set the loss against your EEA FHL profits of later years. You cannot set the losses of one FHL business against the profits of the other of your UK and EAA business. Thank you so much for watching. If you watch this all the way to the end, kudos to you. Kudos to you. But yeah, so even the last thing, let me not just escape that, but very important, you can run this and offset losses from 1 year to another. So it's important if you run it for yourself, or for example, maybe your mortgage interest rate increased in 1 year and the rent that you've got guaranteed caused a loss, and then you increase your rent later to, you can offset the loss against that in terms. So this is actually, reading this to a layman, if you never knew about property and you were going to buy a property and invest, and you had no free reign, you had no kind of restrictions or anything like that, and you were like, what am I going to do? The smart option and the option to pick would always be to do this model. And look, you have to look at it like, what we are is, you're renting to tenants. A lot of landlords rent to tenants, and they either rent to tenants and manage themselves, or they rent to tenants and they give it to an estate agent. Think of us as a furnished holiday let managing agent. And there's 2 kind of offers we do. We give you rent guarantee just like agents, but we don't charge the fees or commissions. So we're ultimately superior to agents anyway. So if you've got an agent, fire them, come work with me. Truth be told, book a call. Or if you work with tenants and you want to just change, you can run this yourself. You can run this yourself, or you can you can work with us and we could do a profit share. So there's multiple ways. Honestly, the primarily thing that I advertise to landlords online, you'll find guaranteed rent. You won't see me talking about profit share. So if you contact me and you mention anything about profit share, I'll know you've watched one of these videos. So I will commend you because that clearly shows you're dedicated. But you won't see anything online about profit shares. So you won't see it. So if that is something you're interested in, book a call, mention it to me, and we'll go from there. But last thing, let's look at the calculator again, because it's my favorite tool. I might make a video just playing with this calculator because that is just more interesting than these tax documents. You can see I'm almost falling asleep. I've been reading tax documents for 2 hours, and then I'm not even doing any self-assessment for this. This doesn't apply to me. I already know what I'm doing. I've been running this, so I'm not making this transition. But look, 2016 to 2017. 2020 to 2023. This is for only 1,300. So look, if you've only got one property, you might be thinking, hey, 60, 70 pounds a month. You've got 4 properties, your portfolio landlord. Or if you've got, let's say, a high net worth individual, your property is a high income and rent, let's say, someone told me that their mortgage interest was 2,000 once upon a time. Crazy. So let's say this is you. Look how much money that is in your pocket. That's £5,000. That's about £500 a month if you're playing with large sums. But let's say that's your portfolio. Your portfolio does this. So I've created these videos. This is free. Maybe I actually will make a separate video just going through the calculator because that is more digestible. I should have done that first. But nonetheless, if this is something you're interested in, book a call. And look, you don't have to do it today. You don't have to speak to us this week or next month. Just keep in mind, if you've got a renewal coming up and you're like, do you know what? I had tenants. I wasn't able to increase the rent ever. It was very emotionally draining. Or I had estate agents, they charged me so many fees. I'm not even sure if I made money. Or you just want to make more money. If you want to make more money, speak to me. That is it. I've been Abdul from Ace Investment Property. Thank you so much for your time. If you're truly watching this to the end, I do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for spending it with me. And I do look forward to our next conversation. God bless. Speak to you soon.